Hey everybody, more movies. I got a box, so let's see how many of these we can get through in a reasonable amount of time. Starting with Whiplash. This is one of my all-time favorites. One of my favorite movie endings ever. You know, before those last two shots hit, I was like, "This is a really good movie," and after they hit, I was like, "This is the best movie of the year." One of my favorite movies of the decade. It recontextualizes everything in such a cool way and just makes you think about everything that came before in this new light. Is this on too loud? I think it's fine. Um, but yeah, I mean, J.K. Simmons won the Oscar for this, very much deserved. Won for editing as well, which is great. It really should have won for screenplay. It's a wonderful script, but really good, really great film. Oh, and Giselle with some of my friends from a channel called Deep Focus, a really cool film channel. We went through and rated all the Damien Chazelle movies. I'll put that link down there, so all 33 of you can go check it out. It was fun. Wolf of Wall Street. This was, I believe, this was Scorsese's follow-up to Silence, which was like a similar length. And it's just funny because they couldn't be more wildly different in terms of like tone and approach. I saw this movie with my dad, which was, it's kind of a weird movie to watch with your dad, but it's a lot of fun. I mean, it's fun to the point where a lot of people think it's glorifying these people's lives and the crimes they committed, but I don't think so. I mean, just because it's a big energetic movie doesn't mean that it's approving. And these people's lives seemed really awful to me while I was watching it. So I don't know. Oh, but yeah, Jonah Hill, yeah, incredible, and this should have got the Oscar for it, I think. And that whole Quaalude scene with him and DiCaprio with like just great physical comedy. Like I didn't know DiCaprio could do stuff like that. At the World's End, this is the final film in Edgar Wright's Cornetto trilogy with Simon Pegg, Nick Frost. Uh, a lot of people think this is a step down from the other two. I really enjoyed this movie. I think it's a little more kind of dramatic and emotional than the other two, but it's still really funny and still really ridiculous. In particular, Nick Frost gets more to do in this movie and has a more interesting and kind of three-dimensional character. So yeah, I mean, I would say if you're a fan of either Shaun of the Dead or Hot Fuzz or both, and you've heard this one is kind of disappointing, see it for yourself. Make up your own mind. I thought it was, yeah, I think it's really just as good as the other two. Maybe Shaun of the Dead is my favorite by a bit. Uh, we got Zodiac by David Fincher. This is the director's cut, which means it's even longer, which is awesome. Um, I just love this movie. This is an incredible movie. I mean, David Fincher has made so many great films, and this is easily my favorite. Like just the feel of this movie, just the tone he was able to cultivate of kind of dread mixed with this weird kind of excitement, that these people are tracking down this guy, how that brings them closer together and eventually causes them to drift apart. It's a fascinating movie with a great ensemble cast and based on a really harrowing, true story. So if you haven't seen Zodiac, definitely do it. It's long, but it's worth it. This is my friend got this for me. The Muppets movie collection, which I was very happy to receive. And this has the two most recent Muppet movies, Muppets Most Wanted and the Muppets reboot from 2011, which I don't know why they didn't continue that series. I thought they were doing a great job. Um, and then it also has the Muppet movie, the original one, the one with like Rainbow Connection and stuff. The Great Muppet Caper, Muppet Christmas Carol, which was a huge favorite of mine when I was a kid, and Muppet Treasure Island, which I remember seeing in theaters when I was, like 8 or so. That was a good time. I think I got some chicken wings. I think I went to Whole Foods and got some chicken wings, and then went to see Muppet Treasure Island. I don't know why I remember that. Uh, but yeah, I mean, the only ones I can think of that are missing from here are Muppets Take Manhattan and Muppets from Space. So I'll pick those up at some point. I mean, I don't remember Muppets from Space being very good, but if I'm going to be a completionist about any franchise, it should be the Muppets because, like, Muppets make me happy. I love the Muppets. What do we got here? We got Blood Simple, the first film by the Coen brothers. The Coen brothers are my favorite filmmakers, and this is, just because it's their first film and it was kind of lower budget, it's still great. It's one of their best, I think. It's probably like in my top 10 Coen brothers movies. Amazing performance in this by M. Emmett Walsh. Really good early work from Frances McDormand. I think this might have been her first movie, or at least her first like major part. And yeah, it's just like it's a great neo noir. Highly recommended. We got West Side Story. This kind of nice box set here comes with some artwork. Artwork, which is just like lobby cards, different poster designs and stuff. So that's nice. And it comes also with a hard booklet with it has like behind the scenes photos and stills from the movie and little biographies of all the people who worked on it, like the actors and the writers, the songwriters, the directors. So yeah, I mean, West Side Story is my favorite movie musical. So I like to go, all out on, special editions and stuff, only when it's like a real favorite of mine. And this one definitely is. So I'm very happy to have this cool set. And I got it for only $15 at Half Price Books. Very reasonable for that, I think. We got Star Wars The Force Awakens, which I had a blast with this when I saw it in theaters. It's gone down a tiny bit in my estimation because, once I saw The Last Jedi and they were really kind of pushing the franchise in different directions and trying some new things, I thought back on how safe this was. And, it suffers a little in comparison, but it's still a super fun movie. And I remember how exciting it was to see this in theaters at the time and get introduced to all these new characters, especially Kylo Ren, who's a character I found really fascinating, especially in this film. Yeah, it's a good time. What do we got? We got The Hustler, classic movie with Paul Newman, Jackie Gleason, George C. Scott. Very depressing movie, but very much worth it. They did a sequel to this in the 80s that Newman won the Oscar for, The Color of Money. Scorsese did it, and that's a pretty solid movie. But I think The Hustler is considerably better. I think Paul Newman should have won for this one, honestly. Or both. Give it to him for both. I'm fine with that. Jackie Gleason, too. Jackie Gleason totally should have won that year. But beautiful movie. Very sad. Skyfall, another great Sam Mendes movie, one of my absolute favorites. This is probably my second favorite Bond movie ever after Casino Royale. As much as I love the classic films, especially the Sean Connery films, those two Daniel Craig movies are just like off the charts wonderful, in my opinion. But yeah, Skyfall, shot by Roger Deakins, probably the most visually beautiful Bond movie of all time. Amazing villain, played by Javier Bardem. That scene where they first meet and Javier's like almost kind of like flirting with Bond and stuff like that. It's just such a beautifully acted scene. And it builds to this climax that's a little weird. That's like a little Home Alone-y, and stuff. But I don't object. There's just so much wonderful stuff in this movie. There's this fight scene that's like all done in silhouette and stuff, and it's probably the single best shot in any Bond movie ever. Yeah, I mean, if you have any interest in Bond, you've almost definitely seen Skyfall, and if you haven't, it's incredible. So you should see it. You got the first Spider-Man here, Spider-Man: Homecoming. I believe this is the only one of the MCU Spider-Man movies I own currently, which I'm going to have to fix because I really enjoyed the other two as well. But I do think Tom Holland is the best Spider-Man we've gotten on screen yet. And Michael Keaton was wonderful in this movie, playing the Vulture. Really fun film. Then we got We got Paul Verhoeven's Starship Troopers. And like a lot of Verhoeven's films, like RoboCop and God, what was that? What was that? Showgirls. Yeah. Um, you know, he gets a lot of credit for being um, a satirist, and saying that, if anything in these movies rings as stupid to you, that he did that on purpose as like part of this societal critique. And I think there's some of that in there, but it might be a little exaggerated. But yeah, I mean, this movie is definitely there's definitely an element of it that's taking down fascism, but it's so straight faced that you can read it, if you didn't know anything about the filmmaker, you could read it incorrectly, because actually the book this is based on, from what I understand, I haven't read it, has some leanings in that direction that's like much more pro. And Verhoeven got his hands on it, and he was like, "I'm only going to do it if I can make fun of these people." So basically, you've got this ridiculous dystopian future movie where these space marines are fighting these giant bugs, and it's just super entertaining. Like I don't know if it's a good movie. I don't know what a good movie is necessarily, but it's fun. I like it. Uh, Knives Out. This was my favorite movie of 2019. It was hilarious when this came out because Rian Johnson had just directed The Last Jedi, and a lot of the fans really, really hated it. So when this came out and it was directed by Rian Johnson and it was good, all these people were like shocked, and they were like, "Oh my, I can't believe Rian Johnson actually made a good movie." And it's like, you haven't. I really doubt these people had seen the stuff he did before The Last Jedi, like Brick and Brothers Bloom and Looper. He's always made really good movies, and I think he's got a perfect filmography so far. The sequel to this, which I don't own yet, which I definitely will get, Glass Onion, was wonderful too. But this one, I think this was a really special film. Like I said, this was my number one the year it came out, 2019, I believe. And yeah, I mean, Daniel Craig is wonderful as Benoit Blanc. I consider this, Southern comedy version of Daniel Craig, which I saw for the first time in Logan Lucky, to be kind of like a parallel, like a Daniel Craig from a parallel universe. It's like, funny Southern Daniel Craig is like his own entity and has his own filmography, and he's one of my favorite Daniel Craigs. He's up there. And who else? Ana de Armas. This was kind of maybe not necessarily her breakout role because she did have a pretty prominent part in Blade Runner, this 2097. I don't know what's wrong with me. I can't remember. 1945. I don't know. What, Blade Runner 2. Uh, but yeah, I mean, she's basically the lead in this. Her and Daniel Craig are kind of co-leads, I would say. And she's super wonderful, likable in this movie. And it's just a great cast with Michael Shannon and Toni Collette and Don Johnson and Chris Evans, Jamie Lee Curtis. They're all so much fun. Amazing ensemble cast. Really funny script. Great mystery. It's kind of a tribute to those Agatha Christie mysteries, which I've always really enjoyed. So, yeah, check it out if you haven't. You probably have. This is a movie called Nocturnal Animals, and you might want to turn this off during the opening credits. Resist the urge to do that, because what seems like kind of a pretentious movie actually kind of turns out to be like a screed against pretentious art. Or that's the way I read it, at least. I think Tom Ford, he's a fashion designer. He's been around a lot of artists who are very, like surface level and stuff. And I think this film is his statement against thinking that way and toward kind of more emotional, kind of personal expression, which is nice. Which maybe it's like a pretentious takedown of pretension. I don't know, but it's a super fun movie. It's it's ridiculous. It's a story within a story, and Michael Shannon is wonderful in it, and it's just this is great satire. I would say this is more my speed in terms of satire than say the Paul Verhoeven oeuvre. But yeah, if you haven't seen this one, Tom Jones, Jesus Christ, Tom Ford has only made two movies. He made this and A Single Man, and both of them are wonderful. If you haven't seen them, I don't think I own A Single Man. I gotta get it soon. Exorcist 3, yeah. A lot of people say this is a super underrated movie. I'm inclined to agree. I mean, I definitely prefer the original Exorcist, but this movie has a lot to recommend it. It has awesome atmosphere, some really good scares, and it's got this incredible performance by Brad Dourif, who's like Oscar worthy, great, like unbelievable. And this also has William Peter Blatty's original director's cut. William Peter Blatty was the guy who wrote the book that The Exorcist was based on. And then he actually got a chance to direct this movie after the second one by John Borman was like a complete disaster. And at first, it was like very tenuously tied to The Exorcist. Like there wasn't even really an exorcism in it. And the studio made him add elements to tie it more directly to the Exorcist films, particularly the first one. And that's the only cut I've seen. So I'm looking forward to seeing William Peter Blatty's cut and seeing how it's different, seeing which one I prefer. But the theatrical cut that I've seen is fantastic. So we'll see. Um, I picked up this nice copy of The Fog. This isn't one of my absolute favorite Carpenter movies, but it's still a super fun movie. And it kind of has that nostalgia glow to it, even though some horrible shit happens in it. Just a really fun movie. You know, it's a good time. Point Break. This is one of my favorite action movies ever. It's Keanu Reeves infiltrates this gang of like criminal surfers, and Patrick Swayze's character, he's like the leader of this gang. He kind of indoctrinates Keanu's character, who's named Johnny Utah, I believe. He kind of indoctrinates him into his philosophy and whatnot, and Keanu ends up being conflicted. It's like this: are his loyalties going to be with the police? Or are they going to be with these criminal surfer people? And it's a really fun movie, directed by Catherine Bigelow, who would go on to win an Oscar. So that's nice. What do we got here? A couple more. I have Jurassic Park on Blu-ray 3D. I don't have a 3D TV, but fortunately there's a normal Blu-ray in here as well. I'm not even going to talk to you about Jurassic Park. Jurassic Park is incredible. I mean, you already know that probably. Everybody loves Jurassic Park. All right, I'm going to do one more because this column of movies I have here is like threatening to fall over all over the floor. Um, Memento, yeah, early Christopher Nolan film. Sometimes I wish that he would make movies on kind of this smaller scale again. Not that his epics aren't great, but I kind of miss this Christopher Nolan. That was a little more contained. But this is just a really cool thriller about a guy who has no short-term memory, and he's trying to figure out, who's using him, and what people's motives are, and he's looking for the person who killed his wife. And it's kind of hard to complete a successful mystery investigation when you can't remember what happened to you like 15 minutes ago. So it's a super cool premise, and Guy Pearce kills it in this movie. It's just Dottie Dorn's editing is crazy good. I will say, I don't know if it's on this edition. I don't think it is, but I used to have at my dad's. We had like a special edition of Memento that had a forwards cut. Like the whole movie is like presented. It starts at the end and goes to the beginning. So they had a secret way to access this cut that I figured out all by myself. I was very proud. Where if you complete this puzzle correctly, it'll show you the movie from beginning to end instead. And my main takeaway from that, it did clarify a couple things about the plot, But my main takeaway was that it's a much more interesting movie backwards. So I'm glad he decided to tell it that way. So that's about it for today. We're gonna get into more movies soon, and yeah, thanks for watching. Bye.